I am a publisher, writer, editor, daughter, sister, auntie, dog mom, and many other things, including currently a cancer patient. But I am not a doctor or medical professional of any sort. What you are about to watch is an episode of my journey through cancer. I'm sharing my adventure with you in hopes that you'll find something here that's comforting and maybe even inspiring. This video is not intended to provide any sort of diagnosis or treatment plan. Please go talk with your doctor for professional medical advice. We are coming up on a year now since I was diagnosed with cancer, and a bit less than a year since my doctors installed a port in my chest. And the port has been a true blessing. My caregivers have used it to give me infusions of chemo, and not all, but many of the tests I've had to take over the course of treatment have called for an IV to infuse drugs or contrast dyes, and of course to regularly draw blood from my labs. Most of this work has been done through my port, and considering that it takes 2 or 3 or sometimes 5 tries to get an IV into my skinny veins, I've been really grateful for the port. Today, I had an MRI, and the nurse there used a port to infuse the dye for this test. Okay, so I'm in, no makeup, no jewelry today for my MRI. One more test, which will hopefully determine that my treatment's worked. It's a final test I take before hopefully going into monitoring mode for the next several years. And maybe if this test turns out okay, I can get my port out, which I would love. So fingers crossed. Here we go. I also loathe my port. It is quite prominent, and it shows through my blouses like a third nipple. It rubs against the cups of bras and against seat belts when I'm in the passenger seat of a car. It pulls when I roll over on it at night, and sometimes it itches. Mostly I dislike it because it reminds me that I've been sick. Showering, drying off with a towel, applying lotion. It gets in the way, and I can't get away from it. I just gotta rub my hands over it and feel it, and it makes me cringe. The tube that runs from the port into my vein makes me feel squeamish, in the sense of feeling vulnerable. So of course, I deflect with humor. All right, so here we go. This is the height of hospital fashion. All right. Gotta laugh, right? Okay, fingers crossed. The test today was a pelvic MRI. I do not like MRIs because I am just a little claustrophobic. So here's a tip. When you ask how long the MRI is going to take, the technician will give you a time estimate. And what I learned today very clearly is that the estimate does not encompass the total time with changing clothes and accessing the port and transport to the MRI room and all the pre-MRI events that take place. The time they are referring to is the time you will actually spend in the tube. One thing I did remember from my last MRI was not to request Bruce Springsteen as my musical selection, because it requires superhuman control not to break out into a dance while you're listening to Thunder Road. And when you're in an MRI, you have to lay perfectly still. This time I requested folk music. Unfortunately, one of the first songs was James Taylor's Fire and Rain, which was the song I listened to the entire day when I was 17 and my grandmother died. So I started crying early on in the process. And then the next song was Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now. So, I just kept on crying. Fortunately, crying is something that you can do while remaining perfectly still. though ultimately the banging in the tube was just too loud, and I sort of forced myself into meditation mode, and I think the next MRI I am just going to request earplugs. Okay, so back in civilian clothes again. The MRI is over. Took 45 minutes inside the machine, where I was able to stay by, doing the meditation thing. Although I will tell you that drugs would have been good. But anyway, I'm still hooked up to this thing. But hopefully this thing will be gone very soon, because this MRI will come back and tell me that I'm clean. So that's what we're aiming for. Cleanliness. In a few days, my colorectal surgeon will call and report the results of what I hope will be this final test. And the final test until I can go into sort of monitoring mode for 5 years. And the final test before she'll let me know when I can schedule the removal of this port. Or if I can schedule it. I mean, if I have to keep the port, I'll deal, of course. But if you've got a second or so free in the next couple of days, a prayer for port removal would not be out of order. Meantime, I'm trying to occupy myself with other things. Food, for example. So, MRIs can leave a really bad taste in your mouth. So here we are at what I have been told is a fabulous sandwich shop, and Little Mama's in Pleasant Gap, and waiting for my meatball parm.
According to their menu, they can take that crust and make a sandwich out of it.
Nice.
With any of their sandwiches.
Gluten-free pizza and meatball parm. The meatball parm was pretty good. Jack said the pizza was the best he's ever had for a gluten-free pizza. I've also been catching up on a lot of projects that sat on my desk while I slept through so many months of treatment, including refreshing my new office space. So pretty much what we've got is a blank canvas in my new office. Just take you on a little panoramic tour. That's not staying, but it's got lots of color, which I desperately need because my mother's home is quite white. The floor is going to be great because it's that cushy flooring that is good for yoga. So I can have my yoga studio in here, as well as my YouTube studio for 5x69, and my desk, and little relaxation area, and my sewing stuff is all going to go in here. So I'm looking forward to being able to decorate and put my furniture in and get set up and have a working space. Now all I have to do is find the keys to my storage unit. Sometime during the worst of treatment, when the chemo brain was bad, I came across the key to my storage units, plural, and decided to put these keys somewhere where I wouldn't lose them. And I can't remember where that was. So, if you want to follow a deeper dive into what I'm calling the not safe for work aspects of cancer treatment and recovery, you can follow me on Patreon, and the Patreon link is below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next month, hopefully with great news about today's MRI and at least a semi-furnished office space to show off. And now I'm gonna go tear my room apart, try to find the keys. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Also, don't forget to call your senators and your congresspeople to demand universal health care, and most importantly, don't forget to vote.